Earlier this afternoon, head coach Kevin Stefanski asked about his job as the Browns head coach.
Kevin, after 2 frustrating seasons here, do you wish to continue beyond this season as Browns coach?
Yeah, as you can imagine, my sole focus is on this game versus Cincinnati, but I also would tell you I'm privileged to have this job.
Jeff, the other thing that came out late last week, Joel Bitonio came out and basically said, they should be building around Kevin Stefanski. I know it's a current player, but that's a guy who's probably going to retire. So that there is a lot. You can say a lot of things. If you get 3 wins and 4 wins in a football season, in an NFL season, you have justification to move on from a guy. Team clearly hasn't quit on him, though.
There's no way. And, yesterday, and with that win, and I kind of talked about this, my question is where did, what did that win and the drop in, where this team currently sits in the draft, don't think that doesn't weigh in here. You know what I'm saying? On the attractiveness of becoming the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. You walked in with the possibility of number 1, the number 2 overall pick in a class that looks like it's going to have 2 quarterbacks. That looks really appealing. Why did Ben Johnson go to Chicago? Caleb Williams. Why did Liam Cohen go to Jacksonville? Trevor Lawrence. So now I definitely think maybe on the open market, the job lost some of its appeal. If you don't like Kevin because of the lack of success the last 2 years, again, what I'm saying? That just probably says that you're somebody that looks at things a little bit more black and white, a little bit more concrete. I do look back to some of the better years. I do look to the fact that, there's been times where Kevin Stefanski has made, average-looking quarterbacks here look pretty darn good. I'm also just more of a stability guy. And, I get it. Look, 7 wins, a lot of times that's inexcusable. Dave, we've had conversations where I said somebody's head deserved a roll over the Deshaun Watson trade. So, yeah, he's definitely tread some water to this point to be here. We'll see what happens. But what happens if this team goes out and this defense plays like they did yesterday again against the Cincinnati Bengals, which they certainly have the capabilities of doing. We have seen it several times in the past. I think it's one of those ones where if the decision is already made, then, yeah, some change is coming. But I also think if it's one of these ones where they might have to sit down and say, let's look at this one last time or dig a little further, I think they might be happier with what they currently have than hoping to explore and possibly find an upgrade and then have to take so many guys who are playing this hard for this team, even though they're not successful, and then basically have to start all over again.
Yeah, the other thing is if you change head coaches, that means, and I've heard some people suggest, well, you only talk to head coaches who are interested in Shedeur Sanders. That ain't how this stuff works. They will put no conditions on a head coaching search because you don't want to eliminate anybody. So Shedeur Sanders is up there. The whole defensive structure is up for grabs. Everything. If you bring in a new head coach, unless you go to Jim Schwartz, everything's getting torn down and retooled.
Oh, there would absolutely be changes. And, could you imagine coming in and they're like, okay, well, we'd love for you to coach our team. We have really no intention on doing anything other than the quarterback position, but running the room back the way they are. Wait, where'd you go? Because that'd be it. Everybody's got their guys, or they're looking for their guy. No hot shot coaching candidate is going to come in here and just basically say, here's my toys, you play with them, you get nothing for yourself. That is not the way this would ever work. Now, could there be somebody they're interested in because of who they might bring with them? Because, there's always that thing, what does somebody do? Say, it's all right, you guys can go. We got our own people. So it could be part of, we really like you because we think we know who your people are, your ensemble is, that type of thing. And, we'll just have to wait and see the way it plays out. I think everybody thinks it's such a matter-of-fact deal one way or the other. But, yes, Jimmy Haslam is a ridiculously successful businessman. But I also think that the Southern gentleman that Jimmy Haslam is, I do believe there is the They showed up, they did their work, they did their best. At times it was good, at times it wasn't. And I think that rings a little bit more true with a guy like Jimmy Haslam than it does with, some of your owners that, are just straight about their sports franchise, not so much a overall business background.